Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, I will be sharing the sewing process of this overbust corset. In my previous tutorial, I shared in details the pattern drafting and the cutting process. If you haven't seen it, I will be putting a link in the description box. So please go ahead and watch that video before coming back to watch the sewing process of this overbust corset. My name is Ayomide, and on this channel I post sewing tutorials and pattern drafting tutorials. Now let us jump straight into this tutorial. These are the fabric pieces that I will be working with. I have the center front here cut out on both the main fabric and the lining, the middle front also, and the side front. I also have all the various pieces of the back, the center back, middle back, and the side back. I also ironed in interfacing on all of these fabric pieces. For the front, I've got my main fabric and the lining. For the lining, I also ironed in wording on the bust area of the center front, and I did this on the center front and the middle front. I did not iron wording on the side front because it is not really necessary. It's not compulsory. To proceed with the sewing, I would be starting with the front, and I will be joining the side front to the middle front and also join the middle front to the center front. I would repeat this on both the lining and the main fabric. Also for the back, I'll be joining all of the back pieces together too. This is me right here on my sewing machine trying to join all of my fabric pieces together. I am done joining the main fabric together, and this is what it looks like. So I would need to iron the seam lines open. Here I am joining my lining together. Since my wording did not get to my seam allowance, so just go ahead and sew it on that space that I left, and this would help ensure that your seam is not bulky. This is what my lining looks like after sewing, and it is well pronounced because of the wording that I ironed on the lining. I am done joining all of my fabric pieces together. This right here is the front, and I've also ironed my seam lines open. I've got my lining here also. I've gone ahead to iron my seam lines open too, and I've got my back fabric pieces too. This right here is the back. I joined it together and also ironed in interfacing, and this is also the lining for the back. It is now time to do the bust caging on the lining. The bust caging would help ensure that the bust area is well pronounced. So to do this bust caging, you'll be needing a sew-on Regilene boning, a boning you can sew on. Also, I will be drafting out the areas around the bust that I want to do this caging. I'll be having one boning at the center front this way. I'll be having one along the seam here and also along the seam right here. I will also sew one boning that will go from one side of the bust through the under bust to the other side of the bust. A quick tip here, make sure this particular one is wide enough and it goes through your under bust line so that that bust area can be big enough. So although mine wasn't as wide as I wanted it to be, I only realized after I was done sewing. So guys, after that, I would also have another one above here, making sure that I don't sew it into my seam line. Then another one will come across and another one would come beneath it. So guys, I'll proceed to my sewing machine now, and I'll go ahead and sew my boning casing down. This is a quick tip. This is the shape of my Regilene bone. It's facing downward this way, and it is in this manner I'll be sewing it down on the bust area. I will not be sewing it this way. Rather, I'll place my boning this way and sew it down. So guys, here I'm trying to sew this down. You would need a lot of patience while doing this so that your thread do not cut, because my thread cut quite a number of times. And if you have any tip here on how to sew down your Regeline boning without the thread cutting, please feel free to share. I'm willing to learn that particular tip. Thank you. For the back also, I'm going to be sewing down my Regeline bone, and I will be sewing it half an inch away from the hem and half an inch away from the center back. The half an inch I left from the center back would be used to turn the lining with the fabric with the lining. After sewing the first boning, I'll be marking about 1 inch away from the first bone, and I would sew down the second bone. The space in between would be where the eyelets would be placed. After that, I'll go ahead and sew my boning also on the seam lines, the both seam lines that I have on the back. I am done with all of that process, and this is what my lining looks like. This is the outcome of the bust caging that I did on the lining, and this is what I have on the back. This is also the lining for the back. At this point, you can go ahead and sew boning on the main fabric, meaning you're going to be sewing your boning on the outside, the part that shows on the outside of the main fabric. But I did not do this because I do not have sufficient boning, and also because this was just made for tutorial purposes. Nobody's going to be wearing this, right? So to move on, what I'll go ahead and do is to place my fabric on my lining, making sure that all of the seam lines match up. I would go ahead and sew it down along the neckline and the little parts of the armhole that I have left. And for the back, I'll be repeating likewise. I'll be placing the lining and the fabric together, sew it down along the neckline and along the center back. I am done sewing, and this is what the front is looking like, and this right here is what the back is looking like. So guys, to proceed, what I'll go ahead and do is to place the front and the back against each other, making sure that lining matches up with lining and fabric matches up with fabric. I'll go ahead and sew this down along the sides. And this is what it looks like after joining it down along the sides. This is what the back is also looking like. What is left is to pipe the edges at the hem. So I'll go ahead and cut out a strip of fabric that is about 2 inches wide, and I'll use that strip of fabric to close up the rough edges here, and I'll be done with this tutorial. I have gone ahead to close up the hem, and this is what it looks like. Guys, if you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If I were to work on this project again, I think I would sew on the boning on the outside so that it can have a well-structured look. Also, this also depends on your preference. Some people might not like so much boning. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please click on the subscribe button below, turn on your notifications, and I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.